Hi, I'm Taft Singletary, a master's student at Springfield College, studying sport and exercise psychology. Thank you. Sport psychology program here at Springfield. I've always been an athlete ever since I was a little boy. All my siblings, my parents, both high school collegiate athletes. So I understand the perils of being an athlete and commitment and all the intricacies that go in to trying to perform well. So like you said, we're going to be doing these periodically, maybe every other week, going to alternate between men and women's. But I just want to let you know that this is a passion for me. I really love doing what I'm doing to help athletes achieve peak performance via the mental aspect of the game. Everybody can go out there and play tennis physically or football or basketball or whatever, but the athletes who invest and commit into their mindset will definitely benefit. What I have before you is don't pick on me, but a little poem my mother printed for me my very first day of freshman year. I provided pencils there in case you want to jot down notes, little things. So if you would, I know Coach Scholoff loves to have efficacy, collective efficacy, we're as a team. So let's all read this together to start the day off. I'll start. So the title is, Whether You Think You Can or You Can't, You're Probably Right. All right, here we go. If you think you are beaten, you are. If you think that you dare not, you don't. If you like to win, but you think you can't, it's almost certain you won't. If you think you'll lose, you've lost. For out in the world you'll find that success begins with a fellow's will. It's all in the state of mind. If you think you are outclassed, you are. You've got to think high to rise. You've got to be sure of yourself before you can ever win a prize. Life's battles don't always go to the stronger or faster man, but sooner or later the man who thinks is the man who thinks he can. I'll mess up that last one. But I think that's excellent. It speaks volumes to our attitude, preparation. We know that if you fail to prepare, you're preparing to fail, right? So today our topic is going to be performing well under pressure, being able to trust yourself in tight situations, okay? So the next slide is, we all want to be a winner, right? That's the philosophy by most people. If it is to be, it is up to me, right? That kind of ties back into the first poem that we just read. It all depends on yourself, right? It means that if you want to be successful, you have to understand that ultimately everything rests on your shoulders. It means attitude, right? Attitude is very important. It is up to you to determine how far you go in your sport, right? And hopefully you have a good network, good coaching skills, good athletes you can depend on to help raise your self-ability and efficacy. But ultimately, you have to take responsibility in your training and the process you possess. And attitude, I can't stress that enough. What you think causes what you feel. So, without reading off the slide, what do you think sport pressure is? There's two words that I'm looking for specifically. But we'll get to what's on the slide, but what do you think sport pressures are?
Anxiety.
Okay?
Doubt.
No.
Fear of failure.
And these are all true. But right here it says, pressure usually refers to the feelings an athlete has about performing in a sporting situation, which can be doubt, anxiety, fear of failure, but is often experienced as a compelling or constraining influence on the mind, right? So how you perceive something. It's an urgent demand that must be met. But what I'm looking for really, and what I really want a take-home message, and we'll get to this later, but sport pressure is an external source, right? There's no such thing. There's no color, there's no smell. It's not tangible. It's an illusion, right? Have you all ever thought about that? So that's the most important realization that I want you to take home, is that sport competitive pressure, it's all in your head. On On the flip side, it can be negative, but it can also be positive. We know that pressure is arousal, it's anxiety, but it can enhance your motivation, your concentration, and your enjoyment. Often there are feelings of stress that can accompany a pressured situation, but that added stress, that pressure, that anxiety, it can make you more alert. It can make you, ready to rise to the challenge. Is anyone familiar with this theory, the theory of optimal level of arousal? Has anyone heard of that, the inverted U theory? Okay, would anybody like to explain it?
Isn't it just like each person has their own optimal level, and if they get too aroused, then you peak at a certain point, so you have to find what number you are.
Exactly. So this is a normal curve. Since for tendency, we're not getting into stats or anything. But if you'll see that as performance goes up, right, so does the level of arousal. And the middle is where you want to be on arousal. That's where you're going to perform best. If your arousal is too low, you're not really paying attention to what's going on. You may miss some external sources. You may not really paying attention to yourself. You may perform low. But on the far end of the spectrum, if your arousal is too high, you're not going to perform well either. So you really want to be in the middle, moderately aroused, so you can perform the best you can. So I want to make our workshops interactive. What I'm studying is broad in terms of being applied to all sports, which are tennis players. So I'm going to use theories, or not theories, but like kind of anecdotes and scenarios that y'all can really relate to. All right. So for this, I have a scenario. Again, we're working about trusting yourself under pressure. So let's say it's deuce, you're down to break. All right, 4-3. You know you have to win this serve, okay, to bring it back, to win it. So what are some things that you can do leading up to that serve to kind of mentally prepare yourself and not kind of choke under the pressure?
You're taking a moment, like bouncing the ball around, like we talked about this like last week, like when you just before you serve, like walk away from the court, like towards the bounce, and like just take like 3 or 4 seconds and just
Internalizing, finding a routine. That's a good idea. A lot of athletes have little certain intricacies that they do before they perform any task. Go ahead.
Don't say you guess yourself, you kind of know what you're going to do.
All right. We'll tap into that a little bit later. That's exactly right. So when I spoke with women, we talked about collective efficacy and self-efficacy. And what that is your belief in yourself to complete a task at any given time, right? And to have efficacy, you have to go back to matching experiences, primary experiences that you've already had and that you've succeeded really well. So go back to your practice. Trust your serve that you have been working on all week, right? You've put in the time, the effort. Effort is key, right? You've been practicing your serve. Remember that, right? You've practiced this week also, like say you've been practicing a serve all week, you've been attacking the tee, right? Okay? Most likely, that's going to be your opponent's backhand, right? And we know that backhand generally isn't a tennis player's strongest form of hitting the ball. That's what you want, right? You're going to have to, if you say you're in a situation and you know your opponent has a weak backhand, what do you want to do? You want to attack it, right? You want to nick at it. Constantly work that cut, right? So that's good to remember. Like you just said, don't second guess yourself. It's a great answer. Don't second guess yourself by hitting it weakly into the body because he's going to run and he's going to attack it. That's not what you want, right? So if you are serving it down the tee, don't second guess yourself or lose confidence by hitting a dinky, weak serve. Crush it, smash it. You know what I mean? Because if you're in a situation where your opponent thinks he's got one up on you, he may expect you to be scared and not hit it as hard or as confident as you would like to if you were on the opposite side of the spectrum. You know what I mean? So keep him on his toes, keep him guessing. And with you having the ability to do that, right? Being able to face your fears, face adversity, and trust yourself under pressure, internally, that's going to boost your confidence. That's going to bring you back to where you really wanted to be. That's going to increase your arousal level, right? This is what we want. We don't want to have an external source of sport pressure affecting what we do, right? Because we have to live internally, right? So I talked about, nicking, working a cut, right? So boxers, what do all the great boxers do? They're not trained to just knock you out in the first or second round, right? They're there to just jab, nick, cut you a little bit. Once they cut you, they're going to nick. They're just going to take away that cut, little by little. You know what that means? That boxer has discipline, very important, and character, right? Unless you're Mike Tyson and you get beat and you can bite somebody's ear off in the third round because you're losing. Do your process. Do your job. You have been practicing your serve all week. You're confident going into it. Do your job. Nick it. Do your process, right? So, where does sport pressure come from? Even though it's an external source, it's not really real. It can affect us if we let it. So, an athlete's expectations about the competition, right? You're worried about the result, how well you perform, anticipated reward, selection opportunities, praise, preparation for competition. How well did you prepare for this match, right? How ready do you feel? And this goes back to that quote I said, failure to prepare is preparing to fail, right? You have got, you always hear practice makes perfect. That's not true. Perfect practice makes perfect, okay? An athlete's readiness to perform. That goes back to the confidence. How well you feel in your abilities to perform. Efficacy, right? Your attitude. How do you feel about yourself, right? Lack of self-confidence. That's what we don't want. And being able to work your serve, master your forehand, master your backhand, right? Those things are going to boost your confidence in the times of pressured situations when you may be on the losing end. But somewhere you've got to tap into that harnessed energy, that harnessed confidence you built up prior to the spot you're in now, right? Never forget that. If you're in practice and you want to implement a new technique, or the coach wants you to learn a new drill that could possibly help the team, help you out, that can add a little bit of pressure. Want to rise to the occasion, meet the demands of the team and the expectations of your teammates. And another thing, a lot of tennis matches are lost in unforced errors, right? So try not to let the repeated errors or unforced errors bring you down. Everybody makes mistakes, okay? Don't always strive for perfection, but strive to meet your expectations, okay? And what that means is if you have an unforced error, a repeated error, learn from it. Don't let it get you down. Don't let it beat you. Say, okay, I did this caused that. Obviously, this was caused by that. Let's not do that again. All right, let's try something else. It's all about internalizing, understanding yourself, how well you can perform, right? Don't let external sources get inside you. So like I said, on the flip side, you can thrive under pressure. Some people work better under pressure as it is. Some people do not. The people who do not have to work at it a little bit. That's okay. We have to work at everything. We weren't born perfect. So attitude, your ability to thrive under pressure, it's all a muscle, right? And if you don't work a muscle out, it doesn't get stronger. You won't hypertrophy, not atrophy, right? So learning to respond well under pressure in a pressured situation is an invaluable tool for an athlete. Very valuable. So going back to where I said earlier that sport pressure isn't real, it's an illusion, right? There we go. It's an illusion. There's no such thing as competitive pressure. It's all in your head, right? Of course, this all probably sounds like psychobabble. You know, it's all in your head, blah, blah, blah. Well, it's true. That's the most important realization. There's no such thing as pressure. Pressure isn't something that happens to us. It's something that's manufactured by our own thinking, right? Aside from physical pressure, you know, that's exerted on an opponent from another field or the opposite end of the court, in a contextual sense, pressure isn't real. It doesn't exist. It's simply how we perceive the situation. 22% of people let external sources control how they feel and what they think. Winners don't. Winners focus on their internals, right? You decide what you think and what you're going to feel. You live internally. Don't let the scoreboard affect your thinking or get you down. Or don't let your opponent's record beat you before you ever get there because of some number or some stat he has, right? Stay on hand, stay on task, focus, do your job, do your process, survive the assaults, work that cut, work that nip. You know what I mean? Athletes, tennis athletes, boxers, period. They all need to learn this. Because once you understand that pressure is something that you create, then you also understand that it's something you can control, right? Which is very important. And if it's something that you can control, then you can harness it. You can use it for good. Or you can let it take you over. It's about how you feel. So, what are some things that can help us internally be able to thrive under pressure?
Visualization.
Yeah, imagery. I'm actually doing my thesis on that. That's very important. It can help.
Yeah, just go off imagery. Just kind of think about like what you've done in the past.
Exactly. Primary mastery of experience.
And just dealing with pressure and having experience with it.
Exactly. And we'll tap into that too. You know, if you really want to test how you could possibly react in a pressure situation in a real match, put that in practice for you. You know what I mean? So you have to practice to the level of which you want to compete. But the biggest thing I want to talk about right now is trusting yourself under pressure. Trust is letting go of the mental need of control. Right? One of the biggest, most intricate things about performing successfully is automaticity. Right? Being automatic. You train, you practice, right, to work on your fundamentals, your motor patterns, certain skills, right? That's what practice is for. But once you're in a competitive setting, you've got to be automatic. There's no time to think, especially in tennis. We know it's an open skills sport. You can prepare only so much, but most of the time it's knee-jerk reactions and react quickly, right? So once you believe in your body's ability to perform the task in the competition, then you have trust, right? The biggest thing to get trust, discipline, right? You have to have a positive attitude, a positive interpretation of the situation, right? Confidence. Fake it till you make it. All right? So the biggest thing, about having discipline and performing well and wanting to win, everybody wants to win. But would you believe me if I told you that winning is a byproduct of performance? Does that make sense? Right? And you know what? Winning isn't free. This comes at a cost. It comes at a cost of discipline, training, trust, confidence in your ability, in yourself, in your teammates, right? But there's two pains in this world. Pain of discipline, right? Which all your practice comes under, right? Running suicides, playing outside in 30-degree weather. I know it's cold out there, right? That's the pain of discipline, because you want to get better. And then there's the pain of regret. Which one do you want? Right? I would rather choose the pain of discipline. So to develop trust, you need to eliminate fear. You need to eliminate uncertainty. And you need to develop self-efficacy. And by being outside in 30-degree weather, the wind's blowing 15 miles an hour, the wind factor, chill factor is 20 degrees, right? Being able to understand and know that you can perform in those type of environmental situations, still learn and still better yourself as a tennis player, if that doesn't boost your efficacy and confidence in yourself that I can perform, then I don't really know what else would. Because I'm very proud of you guys for being out there and working in these conditions, because you want to develop yourself as a better tennis player, ultimately represent Springfield College. You know what I mean? It speaks volumes. So athletes who lack trust second guess their decisions. Never a good thing. Overanalyze their technique. We tend to overanalyze near about everything these days. Sometimes it's best to just fly by the seat of your pants and just let it take its course, especially, with tennis, with it being an open skill sport. Obviously you want to have some type of plan of attack, which way you want to serve, inside, outside. Developing your swing. Taking too long to make a decision. Like I said, tennis is a fast-paced sport. You take too long, you might miss out, right? Avoid taking risks, making plays to avoid mistakes. That goes back to our scenario we talked about. Hitting a weak serve into the body because you're kind of afraid that you may not hit the serve as hard as you would like or in the direction that you would like. So you're going to slack up and we don't want that, right? Or taking the risk that, hey, I've noticed that he's kind of been lobbing a little bit when I do some certain type of shot. Let's try that. That's taking a risk. But without risk, no reward. And dwelling on past mistakes. You can't do that. You can't live in the past. You can't live in the future. You got to stay right here, right now. Focus at the task on hand. Very important. So there's some things that we can do to facilitate self-trust, and that's confidence. We all know that, and that's the belief in oneself, powers, and abilities. All right. Self-efficacy refers to an individual's perception of their capability to perform at given levels of motivation is reflected in past challenges, effort, and preservation. All right? You have to persevere. Survive the assault. Hit the cut. Do your process. Do your job. That's what you've been practicing all week. Remember, do your job. All right? In the face of adversity, remain true to yourself, your techniques, trust your training. And again, stay focused at the task at hand. So we're starting to wrap things up a little bit. I really enjoyed this presentation, but now let's kind of get on to what we can do about controlling your response to pressure, right? So first, maintain your belief in yourself, no matter the situation, right? Again, attitude, confidence, self-efficacy. Attitude is probably the biggest one, right? Believing in yourself as a winner. Act as a winner. Represent yourself as a winner, right? Keep your head up. Keep your chest up, right? Strive for excellence, not perfection. I think I mentioned that earlier. It's okay to make mistakes under pressure, right? Just as it's all right to make mistakes in training. So long as you recover from them and learn from them, right? Ensure you have good preparation leading up to the competition. Again, y'all put this down in quotations. If you fail to prepare, you prepare to fail. Right? Here's a quote by Paul Bear Bryant, one of the winningest coaches in college football history, played at coached at the University of Alabama. It's not the will to win that matters. Everyone has that. It's the will to prepare to win that matters. Right? And I believe, I would trust what somebody said, but that's just me being a Bama fan. Learn to practice at the same level you want to compete at. If you're having troubles with under pressure or in high intensity matches, practice under those same conditions, right? That's kind of like the self-fulfilling prophecy, the Rosenthal effect. You know, if you think there's so forth, you can act, right? If you're having troubles in high-level situations and you're not performing as well as you think you can, right? Put yourself in that situation and test your abilities. The more you test them, the more comfortable you become in those situations. Chances are, when those situations are real, the better you'll be able to perform because you're more comfortable being there. You have some familiarity about it. You got to, like I said, practice pressured situations in training so they become normal and easy to handle. Pay attention to the things that you practice, right? So they're familiar, and you won't necessarily feel as pressured as someone who didn't pay attention to practice, or someone who didn't put themselves in a high-pressured, intense situation. Focus on your techniques and strategy. Talking about where you want to hit your serve, how you want to attack somebody's forehand or backhand. Like I said, nick. And have good error recovery strategies. That's important. We all make mistakes, right? If we didn't make mistakes, there wouldn't be erasers on the pencils you've got right here. You know what I mean? It's just being able to learn from them and bounce back. People tend to make more errors when they perceive that they are under pressure, right? And we know that pressure is not real. Exactly. So you need to have a good strategy to deal with the pressure without affecting your confidence. Work the cut. Remain true to your process that you have created. Do your job. Remember that pressure is created under an illusion of self-doubt and fear, which we know self-doubt and fear will not let you be able to trust yourself and trust your training. So, pressure only exists if you're concerned about the outcome, right? Winning is a byproduct of performance. You can't win without good performance, right? You know, there's goal setting techniques, and they'll generally break it down to performance goals versus outcome goals. Before you can get to your outcome goals, you've got to meet all your performance goals. Think about it like that, right? You can't win until you perform. So don't get ahead of yourself. Concentrate at the task at hand. Identify the actions and skills that you suffer most in a pressured situation? When you're pressured, what do you tend to do badly? More so when you're not in a pressured situation, right? Find that nick in yourself. Find that cut that you have, exploit it. The only thing is, it's not going to get worse, it's going to get better, it's going to get stronger because you're exposing it. And if you're exposing it, it's in the front of your mind, and you know that this needs to be taken care of because I don't want anybody else to find this out, so therefore I'm not going to even make it an issue because I'm going to fix it, right? Often athletes and sometimes coaches, they will rush things when they're under pressure, right? Or you need to do this, you need to do that, and that kind of takes away from what you kind of develop for yourself. And this will distract from performance. Communication between yourself and teammates. Most thing is yourself, not communicating. And another thing, people forget about this all the time, enjoyment. If you think back, I mean, I know y'all are all collegiate athletes now, you kind of got a job to do, you have someone to represent. But ask yourself, why did y'all get into playing tennis in the first place? Probably because you liked it. It was fun. It met some type of need and value that you have. Remember that. It's still fun. We're out there having a good time. Just the stakes are a little bit higher, right? It's a little bit more organized, a little bit more formal. But have fun. Don't forget, that's why you got into this sport in the first place. And you're good at it, right? So sometimes, even though you may feel under time constraints, it's better to slow down. I don't remember which one of you said that sometimes you need to develop a routine in a pressure situation where you need to bounce, exactly, you need to bounce the ball. Maybe walk over to the fence, take a few deep breaths. That's okay. If you need to take that time, that few extra seconds to internalize and get rid of the external sources, that's okay, right? It'll probably better the outcome, better the situation. It's better to slow down and get your mind right than to rush it and make an error. Like I said, we know a lot of tennis is lost in unforced error, right? And also, last thing, never ever give in. Maintain your commitment and the desire to face adversity. Right? Even in life, you're going to be faced with adversity forever. Right? So you better learn how to overcome it now. So, stay true to yourself, stay in the present with a positive attitude, and let the outcomes take care of themselves. You know what I mean? Because once you develop self-trust, confidence in your ability, right? You can take a licking, but you're going to keep on ticking. You know what I mean? That's a little Southern twang for you. So biggest take-home message, really, is just trust yourself. Trust your abilities. Make a plan of attack, of execution when you practice, right? And just exploit your opponent's weaknesses. Work that cut. Find that niche. Just nick it, right? Does anybody have any questions for me? Would anybody like to talk about any topics we didn't cover? Or would anybody like to add anything? Y'all probably just ready to go on about it, get some dinner, huh? Well, that's all I have for right now. Oh, wow. Totally forgot to hit the last slide for y'all. I'm sorry. But, like I said, that's all I have for you. Trusting yourself in a pressure situation. Hopefully, I see most of these sheets have a lot of notes on them. That's good. Take them, put them in your tennis bag, review them at a later date. And if any of y'all are interested in one-on-one training or getting a little bit more in-depth with some mental strategies, I offer those sessions as well. If anyone wants to write down my phone number or email, y'all can. My cell phone number is 205-826-0666. 888-278-0105. Feel free to text me, got any questions, concerns, need a quick bit of advice, or just a little uncertainty about something, text me. I have athletes do it all the time, especially people I've already worked with. I don't mind it. Like I said, that's what I'm going to school for. I thoroughly enjoy helping anyone I can. All right? So thank y'all for being interactive. Let's give yourselves a round of applause. And like I said, I'll be around. So if y'all need me, y'all know how to get a hold of me. Good luck to everybody.